I was 17 years old. The King of England was at my feet, and I did not know whether to cry or scream. No one ever asked me if I wanted this. No one ever asked me anything at all. My mother died when I was 5, maybe 6. I remember the hush that fell over the house, the way grown-ups whispered behind closed doors. After she was gone, I was sent away with a bundle of clothes, told I was fortunate to be going to my grandmother, the Dowager Duchess of Norfolk. No one explained what that meant. The world I knew had ended, and I was too small to understand what would come next. Horsham was vast and cold, a house of stone that seemed to swallow sound. The upper floor was reserved for girls, cousins, half-sisters, daughters of the Howard blood, all crowded into rooms heavy with the smell of wool and damp. My bed was narrow, the mattress thin and sagging. Some nights, I lay awake listening to the wind slip through the cracks, or to the older girls whispering secrets I could not decipher. I missed my mother's arms, the warmth of belonging. There were too many of us, and never enough comfort to go around. The Duchess moved through the corridors in heavy gowns and pearls, always trailed by servants. She had her own rooms, her own worries. Sometimes she would pause to pat my head or ask if I had said my prayers, but her voice was distant, her mind elsewhere. I learned quickly that I was just another child to be clothed and managed. If I kept quiet and did as I was told, I could pass through the day almost unseen. Meals were taken in the great hall, but I never sat near the Duchess. I watched her from the end of the table, memorizing how she cut her meat or dabbed her lips with a napkin. I wanted her to notice me, to choose me, but she never did. The adults talked of alliances and dowries, of which girl would be sent to court, who might catch a nobleman's eye. I tried to be good, to be pretty, to be something worth keeping. Rules shifted with whoever was watching. Servants drifted in and out. Sometimes, the gentlemen walked the corridors at night, laughing too loudly, not noticing the girls pressed against the walls to let them pass. The doors to our chambers were never locked. The music room was just down the gallery, and sometimes I would sneak in and press a key on the virginals, just to hear something beautiful in all that silence. No one asked if I was frightened or lonely or hungry for kindness. I learned to keep secrets, to hold my tongue, to smile when I wanted to cry. I was a Howard, they said. I must be grateful, obedient, ready for whatever future they chose. I was not allowed to be a child for very long. Henry Manox was the music master. His attention felt rare in a house where girls like me faded into the walls. I was 12, maybe younger, desperate for someone to notice me. He praised my hands at the virginals, called me clever, made me blush. I wanted to be special, to matter to someone. Lessons meant hours alone together, the door half closed, his breath close as he corrected my fingers. Sometimes his hand lingered. Sometimes he laughed at my nerves and told me I was pretty. I learned to laugh along, to hide my confusion. He was older, sharp-eyed, always watching. I thought I was lucky. I did not know what it meant to be chosen by a man like that. The other girls whispered, some jealous, some wary. I tried to ignore them, clutching the pale green ribbon he gave me, hiding it under my pillow. Affection became a secret, something to hide, something that could be traded. If I pleased him, he was kind. If I did not, he mocked me and called me a child. I wanted to be grown, to be worthy, but I was just a girl, with no one to protect me. Manox earned 4 shillings a week in 1534, enough for gloves or wine. I heard the servants joke about it, how the Duchess paid for music but not for better food. When Manox was dismissed, No one told me why. The music room fell silent. I felt relief and shame, but I said nothing. That was how girls survived in the Howard house. Francis Dereham came next. He was the Duchess's clerk, always with a ledger, always quick to smile. He was older too, but warmer than Manox. He called me wife in the dark, whispered promises as we passed in the corridor. I called him husband, though I barely understood the word. We met in secret, behind doors, in corners where no one would look. He pressed coins into my hand, told me he would take care of me. I wanted to believe him. I needed someone to belong to, someone who chose me for more than my name. In 1537 and 1538, he called me his wife. I thought it meant something safe. We thought we were careful. The other girls, Joan Bulmer and Mary Hall, noticed more than I realized. They heard our laughter, saw our glances. Later, they would remember everything. Later, their words would be used against me. I did not know every secret, every promise, would become a weapon. I did not know longing could be turned into evidence, that wanting to be loved would make me seem faithless. In that house, affection was dangerous. Secrets were currency. I learned to trade in both because I had nothing else to offer. No one asked if I wanted any of it. No one asked if I was afraid. The day my Uncle Norfolk told me I would be queen, his words sounded final, like a verdict. I stood silent, hands clenched, listening as he spoke of honor and duty, of the king's favor and the Howard name. There was no question of what I wanted. My role was to agree, to become what the family required. They spared no expense on my appearance. 12 pounds spent on gowns, silks, gold thread, pearls that left marks on my skin. Servants circled, pinning my hair, smoothing every fold. My uncle watched, measuring my worth, making sure I looked the part. I tried to see myself as they did, a promise, a means to restore Howard fortunes. But beneath the velvet, I was still the girl from the dormitory, uncertain and unseen. The wedding took place on July 28, 1540. Bells rang over London, the city thick with heat and expectation. Henry pressed my hand in his grip heavy, his face flushed with triumph. He was nearly 30 years older, and his eyes lingered on me as if searching for reassurance. I was told to smile, to curtsy, to accept the gifts, jewels, lands, a future mapped by others. I tried to be the balm for the king's pride, the answer to his disappointments after Anne of Cleves. That morning, Thomas Cromwell was executed. The king signed his death warrant before dressing for our wedding. Some called it a new beginning, a cleansing of the court. I felt only a chill, a sense of being swept along by forces far larger than myself. Laughter echoed through the halls, but I moved as if in a dream, watched by Norfolk's unwavering gaze. I was the Howard hope, the family's second chance. There was no room for doubt. Henry called me the rose without a thorn. I tried to believe it, to become that flawless symbol, but I knew roses bleed. I knew what it meant to be plucked and displayed, trembling beneath the weight of so many eyes. Velvet draped the halls, candlelight flickered on gilded ceilings, and every step echoed in corridors that seemed to stretch forever. I wore gold and pearls, my hair pinned high, my gowns recorded in the royal accounts, 12 pounds for silks, pearls stitched so tightly they left marks on my skin. Each morning, servants whispered that I was lucky, smoothing creases, fastening jewels, but their words slid over me like water. The palace was beautiful, but its beauty pressed in, heavy as brocade. I moved carefully, every gesture measured, every word weighed. I was watched, always. Inside, I felt smaller than ever, the girl from the south chamber still searching for warmth that never came. Henry called me his rose without a thorn. He looked at me as if I could heal him, as if I was flawless, untouched by sorrow. His words hung in the air, sweet and dangerous. I tried to become what he needed, a promise that nothing would go wrong again. But I knew roses have thorns, hidden beneath the petals, and beauty bruises easily. I clung to my motto, no other will but his. I had it stitched into my sleeves, hidden in the folds of my gowns, a secret vow and a surrender. If I belonged to Henry, maybe I would finally belong somewhere. But the palace was not a home. It was a gilded cage, and I was the prize inside it. Nights were the hardest. The laughter from the king's chambers drifted through the walls, distant music reminding me how alone I was. I told myself to be grateful, to be obedient, to be what they needed. But the emptiness grew. A hollow ache silk and diamonds could not fill. I pressed my hand to my chest and wondered if anyone could hear my heart. I was a queen, but I was also a girl who had never learned how to feel safe. Desire arrived quietly, threading through the sleepless nights of the 1541 progress. Lincoln, Pontefract, and York. Henry's patience wore thin, his attention drifting. I became invisible in my own rooms, surrounded by suspicion. But in the silence before dawn, I found myself longing for Thomas Culpeper's gaze. Dangerous, certain, impossible to ignore. I told myself it was nothing, but the hunger grew. I believed I could manage it, that I could keep myself safe. Survival defined Jane Boleyn, Lady Rochford, who became the silent architect of our meetings. She had survived the fall of queens, her loyalty shifting like candlelight. She carried my notes, arranged the times, watched the corridors. Sometimes I wondered if she pitied me, or if she was simply surviving. I depended on her because I had no one else. She opened doors that should have stayed locked. Those nights with Thomas were never simple. My hands shook as I wrote to him, trying to choose words that could mean everything or nothing. But the heart betrays itself. In the letter I gave him, my only surviving confession, I wrote that it makes my heart die to think I cannot be always in your company. I added the words, yours as long as life endures. I pressed the page with my lips, hoping it would be enough, fearing it would be my undoing. Sometimes, in secret, I felt chosen, alive in a way Henry never made me feel. But fear was always there. Thomas was bold, sometimes gentle, sometimes not. My consent was uncertain, a trembling thing caught between hope and dread. I wanted to be saved, but I knew I could be destroyed. Every secret meeting, every letter, every whispered promise would become evidence. I only knew I wanted to be loved, no matter the cost. The sound of footsteps echoed along the gallery before dawn, but this time they did not pass me by. I remember the cold, the way the air pressed against my skin, as if the palace itself had turned against me. A letter arrived, anonymous, ugly, heavy with secrets. I thought I'd buried. They took it straight to Archbishop Cranmer. I saw his face before I heard the words. He would not meet my eyes. He called me into the small chapel, his hands trembling as he held the note. I tried to breathe, but my chest felt tight, as if the walls were closing in. He read the accusations aloud, the names, the years, the shadows of my girlhood. Francis Dereham, Henry Manox. The old secrets dragged into the light, twisted and sharpened. I wanted to run, to deny, to scream that I was only a child then, that I had never been safe. My voice would not come. Cranmer's lips moved. He spoke of remorse, confession, God's mercy, but I heard only the blood rushing in my ears. The council met in whispered panic. I was forbidden to leave my rooms. Servants stared and then looked away. I pressed my palms to the cold glass and watched the gardens, knowing the world outside had vanished. I told myself to be still, to be silent, to disappear. But the fear grew until it became a living thing inside me. They say I ran down the gallery, barefoot and wild, begging to see the king. I remember the chapel doors, the guards' hands on my arms, my cry echoing in the vaulted ceiling. "Henry, mercy!" My voice broke, thin and desperate. I was not a queen then, only a girl begging not to be erased. I never saw him. He locked himself away and wept, they said, refusing food, refusing comfort. I was left alone in the silence, the sound of my own heart beating like a warning. The palace was no longer a cage. It was a tomb. I waited for the verdict, knowing already that I would not be forgiven. Night in the tower presses close, thick and suffocating. I asked for the block to be brought to my cell. They say I wanted to practice, to kneel and place my head just right, as if that could make the end easier. The wood was cold, rough beneath my cheek. My hands shook. I tried to be still, to be the quiet, obedient girl they expected. But I was only flesh and fear, not much more than a child. Dawn broke pale and cold. Footsteps echoed, the door opened. Alone, I stepped out, my heart hammered in my chest. The grass on Tower Green was silver with frost. The scaffold waited, draped in black. The axe gleamed. Faces crowded the windows, some curious, some pitying. I kept my head high. I would not let them see me break. They say I confessed my faults, that I deserved my fate. I spoke because I was told to. I said I have committed grave offenses, and I deserve the death which now comes. My voice was steady, but inside I was calling for my mother, for someone to take me home. They made me kneel. I folded my hands as I had practiced. I thought of Thomas Culpeper, his name a wound that would never heal. I whispered in my mind, I die a queen, but I would rather have died the wife of Culpeper. They say I was calm. I was emptied out. The axe fell. Darkness. On the 10th of February, 1542, my head was carried through the city, set on a spike above London Bridge. If anyone looked up, perhaps they remembered the girl who wanted only to be safe. I was not a rose without a thorn. I was afraid, and I was alone. They called me his rose without a thorn, but thorns were all I ever knew. I was never given a choice or a childhood. I die a queen, but I would rather have died the wife of Culpeper. Remember me not as a lesson in shame, but as a girl who was never kept safe. Tell my story so no one else is silenced.